My friends, the hidden gears of global military hegemony have just collapsed in public. And the image that is etched in the Pentagon's mind at this very moment is that of an empire watching its own technological vanguard burn to ashes in the desert. And tragically, we need to dissect with surgical precision the relentless catastrophe that tore through the skies of California in the last few hours. Exactly at 11:20 a.m. on June 15, 2026 Pacific Time, the arid ground of the Mojave Desert trembled under the weight of history. At the legendary Edwards Air Force Base located in Kerr County, California, a United States Air Force B-52H strategic bomber began its takeoff roll. We have surveillance footage of the runway revealing the exact moment when the giant rises. What was supposed to be the dawn of a new era of testing turned into an absolute nightmare. The aircraft never returned. The giant simply lost its lift right after takeoff, veering violently to the right side of the runway, unable to gain altitude until it crashed into the ground in flames. The aircraft was consumed in a colossal fireball. Emergency teams responded immediately to the scene, according to the official alert issued by the base, but the impact was categorically unsurvivable. 8 crew members, civilians, engineers, and highly qualified test professionals perished instantly in the crash. A tragic loss in an event that reshapes the entire military chessboard, and we need to talk about this with the necessary depth. If you look at the satellite footage and the additional footage circulating online, the scene is a testament to the fragility of the machine in the face of gravity. You can see a car stopped on the runway, which only serves to give us a sense of the scale of that nightmare. The plane was pushed, sliding and breaking apart until it stopped off the taxiway. The column of black smoke rising after the jet fuel explosion was so massive that it could be seen hundreds of kilometers away. You look at the flames and realize that virtually nothing is left of the fuselage. It's brutal, isn't it? Wasn't it a loss in combat? Wasn't it a shoot down in enemy territory? It was a devastating accident during the most critical phase of flight, takeoff. In those moments when you're low and heavy with fuel. And when a catastrophic failure happens, the pilots try absolutely everything to save the aircraft, but there's no time to eject. There was no recovery window. And what makes this tragedy a historic turning point is the platform that was lost, aside from obviously the lives lost. The B-52 is not just any airplane, it's the grandfather of all modern combat aircraft, a true pickup truck of mass destruction, operated tirelessly, probably by the United States Air Force for more than 70 years. It was this exact model that was used heavily and brutally in Operation Epic Fury, where it completely destroyed and decimated the infrastructure of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. But wasn't the bomber that was incinerated yesterday morning just a regular B-52 from the flight line? Look at the level of information I'm about to give you now. But first, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and leave a like on the video. From the markings that survived the initial records, and from the pre-flight images showing the Louisiana State inscription on the side, indicating its origin from Barksdale, we know that the destroyed aircraft bore the tail number 60,061. Write down this number, it's important. This plane was absolutely unique in the world. It didn't have a backup aircraft. It was the only flight test laboratory that was carrying a completely new AI brain, integrated with the revolutionary ASA and APQ-188 radar. For you to understand the gravity, the United States Air Force was literally betting the entire future of its most iconic bomber fleet on this single aircraft. The story of this machine began to change in December 2025 when it made a transfer flight from the Boeing facilities in San Antonio, Texas, directly to Edwards Air Force Base. It was not a routine flight. Boeing technicians had just installed the architecture of this active electronically scanned array radar. a powerful technology that comes directly from the targeting system used in the F-18 Super Hornet fighter jets. They took the tactical fighter radar and stuck it in the nose of a bomber that's been flying since 1955. And what about the C-17's job? Its job throughout all of 2026 was to test this radar to its absolute limit. Ground checks, integration of critical systems, expansion of flight envelopes, mapping out extreme cases of what could happen in a real World War III scenario, and there's more. The data that would be collected by this single aircraft would dictate the production decision for the entire fleet of 76 B-52H planes. But why is the AESA radar a game changer? Because it turns the plane into a center for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. A perfect ISR machine. The small sensors and the hard mounts on the plane's fuselage give it the ability to sniff out and detect enemy electronic threats at colossal distances. The weapons systems officer operating in the back of the cockpit with the AESA radar gains godlike mapping power over the ground. Here's a practical example to help you understand. If Iran decides to get a little bolder with its international agreements, you put this bomber in coastal orbit and it maps every little detail, every crevice, every fortified island of Iranian territory. And then it pumps these perfectly refined target coordinates directly to the data link of the stealth fighters F-35 and F-22, or even to the F-15 and F-15E Strike Eagle. It raises the situational awareness of the entire theater of operations. And that wrecked aircraft was the pillar of a transformation valued at an impressive $48.6 billion. But it doesn't stop there. There's another massive program underway. The budget is $15 billion focused exclusively on replacing the engines. They were going to remove the 8 old Pratt & Whitney TF-33 engines from each bomber to install ultra-modern Rolls-Royce F-130 engines. This engine program had just passed the critical design review, clearing the way for Boeing to modify 2 more aircraft for testing by the end of 2026. The combination of this new radar, new engines, and new avionics would rename the monster, creating the B-52J, which is intended to serve until the 2050s. This would make the monster the main standoff arsenal bomber, operating side by side with the brand new stealth bomber B-21 Raider. And now, the spearhead of this entire ecosystem has just turned into toxic smoke on the asphalt of California. And that's why we need to dive into the raw engineering to understand what went wrong. Because the B-52 is not a plane designed to forgive mistakes. Keep that information in mind. The B-52H doesn't have ailerons. The most famous bomber in the world doesn't roll using traditional mechanisms. It makes turns using hydraulically actuated spoilers, massive panels on the wings that lift up to destroy lift asymmetrically and force the aircraft to bank. It's a modern miracle to see this thing get off the ground operating like that. The stability augmentation system, the famous SAS, relies 100% on raw hydraulic power to control the rudder and elevators. The entire horizontal stabilizer, which manages the trim and has the aerodynamic authority to lift more than 221 tons of metal off the ground, is purely hydraulic. From a failure analysis perspective, any anomaly in the fluid system, any avionics event that corrupts the controls, or any accidental trim activation during takeoff dooms the crew to death. The B-52 was designed to fly straight and level in the stratosphere, not to handle complex emergencies when you're low and slow. As brilliantly stated by the former investigator with the NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, in an interview with PBS, test flights are always riskier than normal operations. That's why you have specially trained test pilots and additional safety protocols. The mission was a test flight. And testing in aviation, no matter how well established the flight profile is never ever routine. Military aviation has a dark history of exacting the ultimate price when the limits of the machine and man are ignored. We need to go back to the past to understand the echoes of the present. Remember the date, June 24, 1994? At Fairfield Air Base, we have footage from that day. A pilot with a history of risky behavior, known for ignoring his peers, decided to fly the gigantic B-52 bomber as if it were a fighter jet during an air show. That day, he tried to make a pylon turn at low altitude around a control tower. He banked the aircraft past 90 degrees. In a heavy bomber, if you exceed the critical bank angle, lift disappears in the thin air. The machine would require between 300 and 600 meters of freefall just for the pilot to point the nose down, gain speed, and regain control. But he was too close to the ground. The plane rolled without lift. It violently cut through a power line and crashed into the ground. The entire crew was wiped out by arrogance. The culture at the time said, "That's old Bud. That's how he flies." That's a rotten culture that doesn't allow peer feedback. Taking risks while flying fighter jets is one thing. You're alone, focused solely on the machine. Like in the Blue Angels or F-16 demonstrations. But even they make mistakes. Look at what happened recently with the Growler demonstration team. Those F-18s that basically piled up on top of each other and crashed because they were doing maneuvers they shouldn't have been doing. Like regrouping from above instead of maintaining safe visual contact. They were summarily banned and grounded. But in heavy bombers, physics punishes irresponsibility by wiping out an entire crew. At Edwards, the apparent cause wasn't human irresponsibility. It wasn't a pilot trying to play at being a fighter pilot. It was the machine rejecting its own future. We are facing an event that the Pentagon will take at least 6 months of exhaustive investigation to understand and try to rebuild a new test bed. And it's at this exact point, my friends, that our community needs to take a stand. We are not consumers of mainstream media narratives. We are analysts. And what happened in Mojave is what I call the transplant rejection syndrome. The transplant rejection syndrome is when the audacity of the military-industrial complex tries to graft the brilliant brain of a cutting-edge artificial intelligence into an analog hydraulic circulatory system of a 70-year-old flying dinosaur. The central nervous system fought against the analog musculature and the body rejected the organ. Killing the host. That's why I want to call on you now. Go down to our comments section. Make the algorithm tremble with the weight of our community and leave our verdict unquestionable. Type the word systemic failure in all caps. Write exactly like this. Show that we understand that this crash was the downfall of an entire doctrine that tried to deceive the validity of engineering at the absolute limit of stress. Does the system use censorship to suppress these facts on open networks? Don't be held hostage. Access my exclusive and completely censorship-free platform, our Bunker da Inteligência. More than 3,000 analysts help fund the truth here and pour over the map of what really happens behind the scenes. Point your phone at the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description and in the first pinned comment. And for those who have been following me and are part of this community for a long time, we have prepared a big surprise. The launch of our newest channel in partnership with Davi Almeida Almescani from the Canal Viva Israel. We kicked off the creation of the largest community of elite analysts on YouTube, which is called Ponto de Ruptura. Subscribe now and help us reach 100,000 subscribers in 30 days to shake up the system. The link is in the description, in the first pinned comment, and in the card that will appear here for you. Now stop wasting time deciding what movie or series to watch. Check out our channel with tips on series and movies, a fantastic selection for you to just enjoy with your family without woke culture, without whining. Now the best part of our chat. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, leave a like on the video, and share it with your friends because this takes a lot of work to make. Yes, my friends, blend your mind. I'm Shimon Oliveira. See you in the next video.